You can all join mom and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right. Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? Good to see you. Welcome back. It's been only about 3 years.
Or traveling.
Yeah. So, y'all okay if I take the mask off and put this on? Okay. I've known too many people who've died from COVID, so they still take it pretty seriously around here. Even though some of you might not, to us, it's a very precious thing that's still very active and alive, and something we pay close attention to. So I know it's a sensitive subject with lots of people, but to us, it's one of those things that's really simple, which is what's the wisest, kindest, most compassionate thing you can do to make sure you don't put other people in harm. And wearing the masks, so we take that very seriously here. So we appreciate you all still doing it. We get it. People are tired of it. The fact that we've actually, as a country and a world, put up with something for 2.5 years is shocking to me. It's not easy. We're not a very patient species, are we? How many of you lack patience? There we go. At least we got honesty with most of you, so we got that one. It's funny too, because if you look at the paramitas, generosity, morality, which is honesty, and the patience, it's right there. Honesty and patience is it's critical of this practice. But as I often talk about, we are very quickly potentially at risk of skipping over those parts of the practice and just doing the meditation and thinking, well, if I just meditate and surround myself with Buddhist things, then that means I'm practicing. But the reality is our ability to be patient, our ability to be honest, our ability to be kind, that's the practice. It was interesting because I think it was Tuesday night, somebody asked a really great question. It's something that comes up a lot in various ways, but someone who was newer to practice. By newer, I mean been at it about a year. In my book, if you've been doing this for 20 years, you're still newer. But they've been at it about a year, and so they asked the question. They said, well, what can I do to kind of increase or improve or deepen my practice, as if it was like taking it to the next level type of thing. And for me, I, as always, just brought it back to the basics. Yes, having a meditation practice is important. Showing up, whether it's here or just meaning showing up in your own way to do a meditation practice is important. Those types of things. But by showing up, it gets you started. And then from there, it's really just deepening your ability to look at how patient are you, how honest are you, how kind are you. Like that can always be improved. So sitting meditation longer, for example, or more often doesn't make you more Buddhist, right? Going to Nepal to a mountaintop doesn't make you more Buddhist. Reading more Buddhist stuff doesn't make you more Buddhist. Because ultimately, Buddhists aren't even concerned about being Buddhist. So, which I know this might be interesting, especially for those of you who might be brand new, because you're here to learn about Buddhism, and I'm telling you, don't worry about being Buddhist. But I truly believe that's the most Buddhist thing that there is. So try to let go of the idea of being Buddhist and focus on morality, patience, kindness. That's really the beauty of this practice. And that's where we ask ourselves, can I be more patient? Absolutely. Right? Can I be more honest? Absolutely. Can I be more kind? Absolutely. And that's really what it boils down to. So I think it's important when we're in, and I'll close with this thought before we sit. I think it's important when we're in a culture that's newer to Buddhist practice, that we don't get lost in kind of the mystique of Buddhism being this cool thing that's out there that I want to try to achieve or gain or accomplish, and always just stopping and realizing Buddhism is a body of teachings from a person that we can integrate into our lives. And that is really the daily practice. That's how we, cultivate a deeper sense of practice. And the good news is in the morning classes, you have all day long to practice this stuff, because I promise you the world out there, they will challenge you and push your buttons the second you walk down that ramp. So, and many of them were challenging your buttons before you even got here. Anyone have a difficult morning? I mean, it's like 11 o'clock and we're already like, oh my God, can this day be over yet? Just starting. So be patient. You'll get through it. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. I mean, you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are we doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often help slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Same thing on a bench or chair. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to gently straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever is comfortable. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And my apologies. Good morning to all of you YouTube folks. Sorry for not saying hello, but glad you could join us. We'll go ahead and settle into the practice of meditation. I'll guide us as we begin and say things periodically to wake you up. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought, Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samupata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, but began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused. Distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Buddhist practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. It is not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment is incredibly difficult and challenging. And very often that present moment is pleasant and gentle and kind. But our perception of the present moment doesn't change that moment. And that's why for me, one of the, I think, greatest realizations of the Buddhist teachings is that you don't ever win. You don't ever conquer it. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to gain. It's just learning to be with life as it arises. And you have that opportunity every moment the rest of your life. So it's not something that you do for 6 weeks and then it goes away. It's not something you take a course and think, okay, well, I got it now, I'm done. It's your whole life. That's where Buddhism really begins to have an impact on your life, is when you bring it into your day-to-day life outside of these walls. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, when we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. And as the Buddha said right before he died to all of his disciples, he said, be a light unto yourself and strive on with diligence, meaning continue to work. To cultivate a life where you're at peace in your own mind and in your own heart is incredibly challenging. Especially when the world around us doesn't do everything we want it to. Now, I get it. If everyone else that you encounter would just do every single thing you want them to, then we'd be all good. But that won't happen. The world will continue to bring challenges to you. And we're here for just a flash. Just a quick blip. We're here. But we carry so much anger, so much pain, so much we carry into each day. And that weighs you down, really. So for me, Buddhist teachings, amongst many things, have taught me to just be grateful for what I have in each moment. Because we all have incredible, beautiful things in our lives right now. So can you stop to realize that? Or will you spend your day focusing on all the negative and the pain? And that choice is yours. That's the thing. Buddhist teachings to me are just that reflection, which allows us to see our emotions as they arise and how we respond to them. But any emotion that arises will pass. So when the emotion of anger arises, sit with it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to do anything with it. In fact, I recommend you don't do anything with it. At least in that moment. Become aware of it. Oh, this is anger. Wow, what's this like? Well, this sucks. What do I want to do? Well, I want to fill in the blank. And then you recognize, probably shouldn't do that. And just sit with it. And it doesn't mean that you just allow the world to continue on in its pretty evil, disgusting ways. You engage with it. You work to make change. You speak and fight for your beliefs and what you think is right, but from a place of love and compassion, not from a place of hatred and anger. So with that, I'll pause and really just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. So we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning. I'll respond to what's on your mind. And again, welcome to everyone joining us on YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box here. Just say hello to everybody there. You're welcome. It's always good to sit with you as well. And to any brand new babies here for the very first time, yay, you finally made it. Good morning, McCarthy, and the parental units that hold that bundle of joy. You can all look, go right ahead. See how you all can smile? Look at that. I saw a hand somewhere. Yeah.
I was just thinking, when you talk about greed, anger, ignorance,
Yes.
it seems like fear should be in there. I can't quite figure out where that fits, and I'm feeling it like more within myself.
Yeah.
The country and my family, and fear seems to breed hatred. And what do you do with fear? And sometimes there really are real fears, for your family, things with the way things are going. How do you? It's hard to be compassionate, and I realize the people that are making me fearful are probably coming out of fear themselves. But it's just hard to be compassionate or know what to do with that.
Yes. I'm going to start by responding with exactly what you just said. It's really hard to do. So I just want to plant that seed very deeply first, that regardless of what I'm about to say, it's not easy. And I wish, and this has come up many times over the years around various situations and circumstances, none of these things are easy. If they were, we wouldn't still be at this year in and year out, waiting for that thing to click that just says, okay, I got it. It's going to continue to be difficult. And in all likelihood, will probably get more difficult before it gets easier. The reason it gets more difficult is because we actually want to respond, potentially. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but we want to respond potentially with compassion and kindness towards those that are responding with hatred and anger and fear. If that craving and desire is there to have compassion for those who are coming out of hatred and anger and ignorance, it's going to be even more difficult. Meaning, again, for those who are maybe just not following me here, it's easier when people act out of hatred, anger, greed, ignorance, to respond with hatred, anger, greed, ignorance. That's easy. To not care how we respond to people is easy. But to actually have this deep, burning desire to want to love and care for those who are causing so much pain is really hard work. So glad I cleared that up for you. Give it a week, you should be fine, right? Now, the second piece to that, which is, the question, and Ryan brought this up actually at the end of Tuesday night's class. There are so many other words you used fear that you could put into the umbrella of what the Buddha called the three poisons: greed, anger, ignorance, right? Endless words. Fear being one of them, of course. So fear specifically, let me say this first before I forget it, and I'll come back to how the word plays into it. But years ago, somebody shared the acronym FEAR being false evidence appearing real. And I found that to be incredibly helpful and useful. It doesn't mean that the fear is not authorized, legitimate, real. But it's impossible to know what is going to happen in the future. So we could have fear for what's going to happen the rest of today. And that fear could be in our own mind and by many others justified and validated. Absolutely. But we don't know what's going to happen. What is going to happen potentially could be worse than what our fears are. And what's going to happen potentially could be better. Either way, we don't know what the future holds. So to wrap ourselves up in this attachment to an idea of the future that we don't know is wrapped up as well in ignorance, in greed, potentially in anger. But greed meaning we want to know exactly how it's going to play out. Impossible. Ignorant meaning we're ignoring the reality of the present moment that says this is the present moment. This is not tomorrow. This is not next week. This is not 10 years from now. And the future will, not just for, as you mentioned, for family, loved ones, friends, strangers locally and all over the globe. The future will have all kinds of ups and downs. And it could get pretty ugly. It already is. I mean, it already is. It's disgusting. It's the only word that properly comes to mind. It's really disgusting to see what's happening in this world right now. And it's been that way. It's funny, I made a comment the other day to somebody. The context is somewhat irrelevant, and I don't even know if this example is going to make sense here or not, but I made reference to something from about 80 years ago. And I said, people were kinder back then. And the person looked at me and said, depends on who you are. And I was like, I stand corrected. Right? So I think about that for the future as well. That there will continue to be people who are incredibly cruel and coming from a place of hatred and anger and ignorance. And in the future, there will also be people who are incredibly kind and gentle and loving and caring. And the hard part is all that we can control is how we are. That's it. And the hope, right, the intention is that the kinder, gentler humans that we are, that has a ripple effect. And I read something just the other day that said something to the effect of some people, no matter how hard you try to explain things to them, not going to change their minds ever. So all we can do is plant seeds of kindness. Again, this doesn't solve or answer anything, but you've known me long enough to know there was no simple answer to this other than just additional thoughts. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but yeah.
One thought about that, it's a double word, is that fear is a thought. When you look at it that way, you realize where it's coming from. It's a thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, and I cannot disagree with that. The challenge is that those thoughts very often are just constant. And when we see people that we know and love being victims of oppression and just horrific treatment by others, it is really hard to just kind of abandon those thoughts, so difficult. So yeah, I agree. It is just a thought, and the thoughts come and go and the thoughts pass. But as you know, go ahead.
It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Be able to move away from a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
Yesterday, to go back to the question about the fear and the frustration. Yesterday on NPR, there was an interview with a professor who, for the last several years, with his doctoral and postdoctoral students, had done an in-depth survey on those that are committing these horrific shootings. And he found basically, it triggered this thing where you said that about it's the most difficult thing to be able to look at that. He said that those people really, all of the surveys that they did, all of the things that they put together, everything, all their research pointed to the fact that most of them don't do it for hatred. Most of them do it so that they can belong to a group that praises them, that they feel I'm doing something, I'm going to make a difference. These people are going to recognize me and say he's a martyr, he did something that was for the benefit of us all. And that was an eye-opener to me, because now it's exactly what you were saying. Now that I realize that maybe it's not what I thought it was, and maybe it was this alienation and looking for someone to love them, or to appreciate them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you just said. You have to, we don't know, I don't think, well, not in all circumstances,
Yeah.
but I don't think that we really know what prompts that kind of atrocities.
Right. Yeah, it's very, I know from my own personal experience, having 19 years working in prison systems and working with people who've murdered, who've raped, working with victims of rape, sexual assault, sexual violence, tremendous trauma. I've seen both sides for 20 plus years. And we don't know what triggers each individual, and it's different all across the board. And those people that are causing whatever is driving it, whether it's that belonging, like you're talking about, wanting to fit in, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be loved, whether it's hatred, anger, whatever is driving that, it's in most cases people who also need love and kindness and compassion and acceptance in their hearts, and they don't have that. And that is the reason. I'll never, and I bring this up a lot, but it's the most powerful story. I chills, and I've known the story for almost 20 years. I worked with him intimately for 3 years. But anyone here familiar with the Zim Kamiza, the Tariq Kamiza Foundation, other than maybe me mentioning it over the years? So this man, Azim, 25 years ago probably, his son, Tariq, was a 20-year-old student at San Diego State. And working at a restaurant delivering pizzas. Fake pizza delivery setup, and Tariq Kamiza, at 20 years old, was shot and killed by Tony Hicks, who was a 14-year-old who had joined a gang. And his initiation into the gang was to shoot and kill an innocent person. So when this happened, and it was big news here because other than what it was, but it was also, he was the first juvenile in the state of California, again, it's about 25 years ago, tried as an adult. So a 14-year-old kid, Tony Hicks, tried as an adult for murder. When Tariq, the son, was killed, the first thing Azim did, the father, was he reached out to Plez, the grandfather, and the one who raised Tony Hicks. He reached out in a hand of forgiveness. And he said, and his famous quote over the years is, "I see victims at both ends of the gun." Both ends. He's a victim. He lost his son. 20-year-old son. Gone forever. And he felt that Plez lost a grandson, because we lived in a society and in a culture and in a world where a 14-year-old kid is so lost, so angry, so confused, so miserable, and has access to just go get a gun and shoot and kill. And Azim said the only way that he could live was to have forgiveness for Tony, who shot and killed his son. So what those two did, Azim and Plez joined up. They started it's called TKF, Tariq Kamiza Foundation. And for the last 25 years, they've been going into schools teaching nonviolence and forgiveness. And like I said, I volunteered with them for about 2-3 years. I would go around with Azim to all the schools, and they would sit. Imagine, here's Azim on stage. Here's Plez, the grandfather, and the kind of moderator would stand behind them and say, "This man's grandson murdered this man's son." And they would show where the bullet went through Tariq. And they're here to teach you about forgiveness and nonviolence. And they've been doing it ever since. As soon as was legally able and possible, Azim reached out and went and saw Tony in prison. And he began to fight for his release. And eventually began to promise him that as soon as he got out, he would have a job waiting for him with the Tariq Kamiza Foundation. Well, within this last year, Tony was really about a year, roughly, could have been 2, don't quote me on that. Tony was released from prison and now works with Azim and the Tariq Kamiza Foundation. I cannot imagine a more powerful story of not only forgiving, but loving and working with the person that murdered your son. What this teaches me is there's a level of opening the heart and endless love and compassion that most of us can't even comprehend. But he did it because the pain that he felt was too much to bear. Azim. He could not live with that pain and that hatred and that anger in him. He always said it was like a bomb waiting to explode in his heart. So, whatever prompted me to share the story, I think a combination of a few of the comments, it just reminds us that there's a level of love and compassion for those who do so many horrific things that is possible. And again, we don't know what the other person is going through. And none of it makes it right. Tony forgiving, or Azim forgiving Tony and the grandfather doesn't make it right, doesn't make it okay. It doesn't wash his hands of it and say, okay, that's good. We're good now. No. In fact, Azim even used to say he can forgive him, he can give him a job, but he's going to have to work really hard to love him. So the challenge is, unfortunately, it does come back on our hearts, our minds, our shoulders. How much of our heart can we open and see just the terrible, tragic events going on that unfortunately are not ending anytime soon? And how do we respond? So, anything else before we close? Final thoughts? Nice gentle stuff on a Saturday morning. Yeah.
I have a statement and a question.
Yeah.
Statement. 80 years ago was World War II.
Say again?
80 years ago was World War II.
Right?
So it was about for 80 years ago. My question, I forget his name, the Buddha. When he was young, he was raised by his aunt, right?
Yeah, his birth mother died giving birth to him, or a few days after. And so his aunt, his mother's sister, raised him, yes.
So did he know that wasn't really his mother?
Later on, yeah. I don't know exactly what age. We know what age I don't know what, but he eventually, yes, he did know.
Okay. I was curious.
Yeah.
You know, how he didn't know about death if his mother was dead.
How he what?
How he didn't know about death, disease, and suffering.
Well, he was a newborn.
Right.
Yeah. So it would have been tough at that age. I don't know at what age. Yeah, he learned. Yeah. I don't know. Not sure. Anything else? All right. McCarthy, you okay if we close now? Can she join Palms yet? That's all I really want to know. Before we indoctrinate her into the holy Sangha of the Dharma bums. All right, so we'll join Palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all those who've lost lives during the pandemic, their family and friends who suffer, those in Ukraine and surrounding areas, those who lost lives in Texas in the shooting, in Chicago, their family and friends, and all of us in this room who suffer deeply. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, so just a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on, people leading from different traditions. We have a family sangha that meets once a month during the summer. It'll go twice a month in the fall. Recovery programs, anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. Multiple classes for that going on during the week as well. I don't think anything out of the ordinary is coming up. So we do have, I see Doug and Tom, a few of you guys, maybe you sticking around a little bit. So if anybody wants to help sweep up some leaves, maybe some water, spend 20 minutes or so in the garden, helping them out, we'd really appreciate it. There's also a little list by the door. If anybody wants to take 15 minutes and, you know, wipe down some railings or vacuum or whatever it might be. As I always say, we have no cleaning crew. We are it. So if anybody wants to stick around and help clean up a little bit, we'd appreciate it. So it's just nice to be open again. Buddha for You also is open downstairs if you need anything. So thanks for being here. We wish you well, and we'll see you soon.